Welcome to the BXG Podcast, the podcast where pop culture and nerd culture meet.
You think it's just going to be barbecue sauce?
Because if you actually read those books, it's just gobbledygook.
I really think clothes should be mandatory.
Speaking of Star Wars,
Captain America.
trailer reaction video. It's time to talk about The Last of Us, episode 8, the penultimate episode. I actually have notes this time, but naturally I didn't have them pulled up. I did not have them. Okay. The Last of Us, episode 8, the penultimate episode, titled When We Are in Need. And this introduces us to a couple other characters. David, who is played by Scott Shepherd, known for Bridge of Spies, X-Men Dark Phoenix, and James, who is played by Troy Baker, who is known for being the voice of Joel in the game and also played kind of a smaller role in the Lonesome Dove sequel miniseries Comanche Moon. This episode was written by Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin, directed by Ollie Abbasi, who is also directing the season finale. This was a going to be difficult to talk about without spoilers, but a very, very intense episode. What did you, spoiler free, what were your thoughts on this episode of HBO's The Last of Us?
So I looked at this episode almost like a reverse roller coaster where it took a little while to get going and you could see it, the tension was building and it was good. Like I liked the tension, it wasn't anything negative. You could feel it building. And we know that Ellie's storyline means that she has a little, violence in her, but nothing we've really seen extreme. And she's trying to save Joel and she's doing little things like that. And then it just goes up that massive hill and you're just creaking, and everything just happens. And I thought it was awesome. I was raving to you about this. I couldn't even hold back. I was like, I should hold back a little bit, but I was like, no, I think it's the best episode of the season. I really do. I just thought the way they built it up, I thought the tension built really nice. The way that the villain was presented was really interesting, where he's kind of a trickster. I would say that he was, and I haven't read anything. I try to avoid things. So I want to talk fresh. But I felt like it was almost like a Satan-esque character, a trickster, trying to elude you with nice things and then eventually presenting himself as the evil demonic character that he is, and then saying you can't get away, that kind of thing, which is that that correlation to Satan in the Bible. Trickster, a fallen person, and then here we go. So I thought it was excellent. Like I said, I thought it was an excellent episode. What I like most about it is that a lot of time penultimate episodes have an ending where you're like, this could have ended that season and I would have been fine. But there still was a little bit left to be desired with it, which I thought made it great. And so for me, like I said, best episode of the season. I thought it just did the justice of this. It was very violent, but not violent in a way that seemed wrong, just violent in a way that seemed that if any of us were living in a time like this, seemed accurate. And I don't know how that correlates to the game per se. I can guess, but it felt very real to the game in the sense that video games can sometimes be more violent than portrayed and things like that. But also it just felt like the storyline was just perfect. So for me, best episode of the season. Can't wait for the finale. But I can't wait because I want it to be over.
Yeah. This was you said roller coaster. I think that this was very much a symphony of brutality that just manages to crescendo at the exact right moment. There are some pretty robust changes from the game that we'll get into with spoilers. But I also felt like those, and has been the case with most of the things, is that have improved upon what was already a masterful story to begin with. Was the violence gratuitous? I think that's a question that a lot of people are probably asking today, as we record a day after the episode aired. Was the violence gratuitous? I don't think so. And the reason I say that is because, as you said, living in this world is kill or be killed, and
Right.
at any given moment, any of the times that Joel or Ellie or whomever kills another person, not just an infected, but another person, it's usually because it's it's you or me situation. And I think that it was necessary. I think that it was necessary to escalate the violence in this episode to show just how far Joel is willing to go to protect Ellie, and how far Ellie is willing to go to just survive, and subsequently also protect Joel and get back to Joel. And I really feel like there's a time in a lot of stories like this where you have these two characters and they're trying to save each other, get back to each other or whatever, and it's like, okay, well, we'll do anything at all costs. What does that mean? And I think that in this case, with this story, in this world, it is, we are just going to tear through this town.
Right.
And, not to get mild spoilers, but in this section of the game, Ellie and Joel just lay waste to this entire resort between the two of them. And it's just, there's more gaminess to it, obviously being a game, but I think that they preserved that feeling or those moments. And it was very much down to a T, shot for shot, in a lot of ways. But I think that there's a lot of specific details to unpack with this, because the violence wasn't even just necessarily like the on-screen violence. It was the shadow of violence. And that is what made this episode scary too.
Right.
And I feel like overall, they have done a really masterful job of using the infected as, okay, these are the things that are scary about this world. These are the things that we're trying to avoid. But I think that they've done a really good job of using the concept of scarcity makes things even more terrifying. If we saw the infected in every single episode, like you do, like in The Walking Dead, you become like desensitized to it. But really what the scariest part about this is the world and the people in it, and the fact that they're
Right.
willing to go to any lengths. But that also, I think, when the threat of infected are nearby, it ratchets things up even more. So I thought, best episode of the season. There's been a lot of really good episodes.
Yeah, like you could pick a lot of episodes.
I think that realistically, every episode thus far has been no less than an 8 out of 10, with most being 9s or 10s.
For sure,
But with that being said, I think that we now will take a break and pay some bills, and then we'll get into spoilers. And this week, our segment, or well, I guess it's not a segment, but paying the bills.
Yeah, our ad
is brought to you. This was actually an ad taken out by the infected in The Last of Us. This is for toadstools, which is, of course, the fruiting body of a fungus. There has never been a precise definition as to what makes a fruiting body of a toadstool. And there's no clear distinction between toadstools and mushrooms. The classic image of a toadstool is that of a fruiting body with a stalk and a cap. And so the infected want you to know the difference between a toadstool and a mushroom, because racism.
Sure. That makes sense.
So
use code BXG at your local toadstool website.
Right.
For 20% off.
Yes. Or in the forest.
Yeah, 20% off.
Forest.
Check your local. You'll get 20% off that free
toadstool.
Careful,
some of them are poisonous. Spoilers. Now, I think the best way to get into this is that you text me during the episode and said that you were very interested to hear what some of the differences were between the episode and the game. So I'm just going to blow the doors off of it, right? And give you one of the biggest differences between the game and the show.
Joel's dead.
No. Yeah. Well, you blew it. I was gonna say something really dumb, but then you beat me to it. So
get out from me, Breton.
What a distinction. So, I mean, how do you want to? What do you want to do here? How do you want to break this down? Do you have specific questions?
The biggest reason why I said this is this, and I mean this in both positive and negative, but mostly positive. This felt like a TV show more than it felt like a video game, and not like the other episodes necessarily felt like a video game. But I think anyone that played any sort of video game like this sees that kind of like the way things are put together. This felt like a TV show. Like this felt very much like, here is this plot point. Here's a lot of stuff that, like, if you're playing a video game, you would just get bored with. And I don't mean that negatively towards television, but in a video game, you would be like, I don't care about this stuff. TV show, it changes. That moral compass, all those things in a 40-minute segment, if you're just kind of sitting through that, hitting, X or something on a PlayStation controller, would be, I think, to some degree boring because there wasn't a ton of action in those moments. But in this show, I thought it worked so perfectly well. I mean, Ellie, unbelievable. I mean, she's so good in this episode, it's ridiculous. But I think that was the biggest thing, was just that there's a lot of talking in this episode, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe that is what people are okay with in video games. But I felt like there was so much talking in this episode, and I love talking. But
so here's what I would say is that there were moments that are not in the game. And I think that the one nice thing about the show, and not just for this episode, but for a lot of the episodes, especially like the Kansas City episodes, you get an opportunity to see, you get an opportunity to see what the opposition's up to. And that's not really something that a whole lot of games will show you unless it's like a moment where the character that you are controlling is like eavesdropping on like a conversation or whatever. So I think just to get a couple things right out of the way is the group that's kind of holed up at this resort town here in Silver Lake, I believe is what it's called, Colorado.
Yep.
And there are no with these characters. First of all, the character of James, played by Troy Baker, is, I would say that he's in the game as a pretty close facsimile to an unnamed character. Basically, this character who kind of hangs out with David is seen throughout, but he's never really said like, oh, this is James. So they kind of just gave a name and a face to that kind of like whatever character. And I thought that it was cool to get Troy in there. Like I said, the voice of Joel in the game. I texted you that I thought that, I thought it went well for him. I'm curious to see whether it could potentially lead to more live action, because he is very much known as a voice actor, and Troy Baker has played some just straight up iconic characters over the years in video games. The only person to my knowledge that has ever played Batman and the Joker. He's been
so cool.
So there's that. There's no real religious overtones to this group in the game. They're just a group of survivors. They mention women and children. You never really see that in the game. Like, you never really see any other like children per se outside of Ellie and Sam. And so like they mention it, but you never really see them. So it's kind of up in the air whether that's even a thing or not. David's really creepy. He's creepy in the show. He's creepy in the game. I don't know that in the game, unless I'm just reading it way wrong, that there's any like pedo vibes from him in the game.
Sure.
Like I said, maybe, I mean, I've played it several times. I've never really read into it that way, but it was almost like they said, all right, let's list all the ways that we can make this guy just totally vile. Preacher, after the apocalypse, maybe he's a little bit of pedo and cannibal. And then Craig Mazin, the director or the producer of the series, was just like, you know what, fuck it, let's just use all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of how we wind up with this David character versus the game version. But the conversations of the group with the group and like the sermons sort of deal are not included. Any type of conversational piece or verbal confrontation between Ellie and David, or Joel and these kind of side characters or these side enemies, are all straight out of the game. The difference is where this is just plot point to plot point to plot point. The game breaks it up with action sequences. So there's the scene where Ellie and David are sitting around the fire and they're kind of talking. And then they're in like a sawmill or like a warehouse sort of deal. I think it's a sawmill. And they get attacked by infected. And so you have to navigate that situation. And that's where he kind of learns that Ellie is like a badass and can hold her own. And then they have the conversation of things are meant to be. We sent these guys out, blah, blah, blah. This wild man, and he had a kid with him. And he kind of connects those dots. And so they just kind of meld all that into one sort of conversation. The sequence where she rides the horse, like in the game, she gets away after the horse gets shot out from under her, and she kind of like escapes into the town, and she starts just fucking wrecking people. And then eventually she gets caught, she gets thrown in the cage, and they have all of those interactions that they had, the breaking of the finger, the biting, like the different back and forth. She realizes that they are cannibals. There's no sequence where like it's hinted at that a girl's just like eating her dad. Like that's kind of left out, and they don't really specifically say that, but they leave it kind of in the shadows, and it's inferred. And the scene in which Joel has the two guys and he says, "I'm gonna rip your fucking kneecap off," is right. It's right out of the game. And then when the guy said, "Yo, you don't have to do that, we'll tell you," and he's like, "It's okay, I believe him," and he just cracks that guy over the skull with a pipe.
So great.
Right out of the game. Right out of the game. The restaurant scene where it's burning down and she kind of sneaks up and goes ham on the cleaver, right out of the game. And so they did just such a wonderful job of recreating all of that. And I was telling Melissa, I was like, man, this was such a good episode. She's like, what? She's only seen the first episode so far. She's like, what makes it so good? I said, it's just intense. It's just, it just never lets up. It's
relentless.
Up moment. Yeah. And I think that despite the fact that they cut out those combat sequences or like the stealth sequences, or, the infected, having to avoid the infected with Ellie and David, it retained its intensity just because of how intense all of those interactions are. And it was wonderfully acted by each one of the characters. And Bella Ramsey is a force. She's a force in this show. Or they are a force.
I hate saying, I normally hate the idea of saying force.
Yeah.
This is one of the few times where I think it actually literally works, where it's, Bella Ramsey is so good in this episode. I don't know how many people, and I mean any actress that could have done what Bella Ramsey did in that last 20 minutes. I really don't, because those scenes were like chilling. And I mean, full disclosure, I had to use the restroom, but I didn't want to pause it because I wanted to keep that momentum going with how well those scenes were moving. That like pausing it would have done it a disservice. I really do.
So you just pissed yourself, or
I just pissed myself. I just pissed myself right on the couch. You know what? It'll clean up, but that scene will live forever. No, I just held it and it hurt really bad, but I don't care because it was awesome. And sometimes you just gotta do it. Sometimes you gotta just power through James Cameron style.
Ooh. Go ahead and use the bathroom. You'll see it again. James Cameron. God, we'd gone a while without talking about him. You just made me upset all over again.
That's why I did it. But no, it was awesome. That was amazing. It showed because we are all Pedro Pascal people. And I mean all is that the King's Yaw, the King's Yin. Everyone likes Pedro Pascal, right?
That's not for Pedro, that's for you.
No, right. It's for me. He's one of the few people I think we all like.
Yeah, he seems to be pretty much universally,
And now it's putting this thing where Bella Ramsey is kind of making that edgeway, and like they can't be Pedro Pascal because he's also the fucking Mandalorian. I mean,
Right.
And so there is that where he's literally in the two best TV shows that are happening at this exact moment. And yet, Bella Ramsey has these moments in this particular episode where you're like, oh, well, that's an Emmy.
Yeah, I don't know. And if anyone beats her, it's rigged.
I honestly say, like,
I hate to be that way, but
no. I agree with you, Brenton. As much as I like Succession, and as much as I'll be like, there's still shows down the road. What Bella Ramsey has done is what you're supposed to do as an actor, right? I mean,
yeah,
to leave you feeling a certain way, and if Bella Ramsey doesn't win, then there's something obviously behind it more than the actual craft. And I'm not someone, we have to respect the craft. That episode was affecting. Right?
Yeah.
And
the thing is
because of Bella Ramsey. It literally is because of what Bella Ramsey did in this episode. Yes, the ending is amazing when he grabs her and says, calls her baby girl. And it's just, that's amazing. And that grabs you and it gives you chills. But it only really matters because Bella Ramsey is like young Joel. Like, he sees that now. He sees that she can take care of herself in the way that he can take care, and it's great. I can't believe I'm saying this, unless Succession is just unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I'm talking a top 5 season of television of all time that I've watched in my lifetime, top 5 television. This is the show. Succession has such a hard thing, and it's HBO, and it can do it. I'm not saying it can't. This show is, like you said, what's the worst episode? 8?
Yeah.
Realistically, I mean, that might be selling it short. It really could be. Like, we might just be, being pedantic, but Succession is the only show left that we know of that is in the realm of doing something like this. And you don't watch Succession. And it's
Correct.
something, but I'll talk about it on here. But I really feel like it's one of those things where it's The Last of Us to lose something like this, and not that this ultimately matters, but it does matter.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that it's very easy to get caught up in everything in the moment, and so maybe a couple months, couple years down the line, we look back at this and we say, well, it was really good, but maybe not as good as we thought in the moment. But I have a hard time thinking about what are perceived to be some of the greatest seasons of television and not including it in that pantheon at this time. And I know you had the very funny, or at least it was funny to me, conversation about how the best first season of television was the OC.
The OC.
What was the other one? Mad Men, maybe? I don't know.
I truly do believe that the first season of the OC is the best, and this is now in the running.
We
haven't got to the end.
Listen,
we haven't got to the end.
Stop it.
But I think the OC's first season is truly the best. The other thing I'll say with the OC is that is regular television. What do we call that now? It's like it's like Netflix,
Fox,
NBC,
network,
Fox,
network.
NBC, network. That's the word I was going to say.
Yeah,
it's the best first season of network television, still in my mind. I still truly believe that.
I've seen. Well, that's in your mind. I've seen.
I'm saying that. I'm just.
Yeah,
it's a great season. It's a great season.
I feel like, and there's one episode ago, and I know how it ends, obviously. But
Sure.
and we'll maybe get to your predictions with that here shortly, but I don't know how
I
this
have no
doesn't
predictions.
I don't know how this doesn't enter the pantheon of just best seasons of television, period. I put it right there next to, Breaking Bad, The Sopranos, The Wire, Mad Men, any of
I
these
would think,
other, any of these other shows. It's just when you have episode after episode where we come on, and it's not just us. This isn't just us fanboying, right?
no,
Or
we're not.
me
We're
fanboying.
just, yeah. No.
It's everyone who's saying, "Oh my god, episode 6, those moments at the end with the house, best episode. Oh my god, the Left Behind episode, to see the emotion, best episode.
Yep.
Oh my god, this episode. Oh my god, the Bill episode." Like the Bill episode had everybody like knees jelly, and like where we've gone since then. I
That's
love
5
the
episodes ago.
I love the
It's
Henry and Sam episode. But and that's what I mean. It's like, how can you not objectively say this is one of the best seasons of television? And like say that with a straight face, mean it.
The only thing, and I'm not saying counter it, is that I do totally agree. I think a lot of times things that get lost in this shuffle are seasons of sitcoms.
Sure.
And I think that is something that people forget, because I will ultimately say the best actual season of television ever made is season 4 of Seinfeld. I should say I don't
dramatic,
know what it would take.
Dramatic television.
Because that gets lost in the shuffle. I've seen these kind of rankings before, and then Seinfeld just falls and they always pick like Seinfeld season. It's not even season 4, which is essentially the best season of Seinfeld. I don't know what happens there. I challenge anyone to go back in season 4 of Seinfeld and not tell me that's not the best kind of thing, best season of television. But for dramatic television, I 100% agree with you, Brenton, that it's the first season of Mad Men. It's probably the 3rd season of Breaking Bad. I binged it, so I always get my seasons confused with Breaking Bad, but I think it's the 3rd season of Breaking Bad that's very, very good. And I have not watched all The Wire, and I have not watched all The Sopranos. We are going to do that this summer. And then there's Hill Street Blues. There's shows like that that get lost in the mix that are really, really good. But this is in the mix, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
And for sure. And I don't think anyone necessarily saw that coming. I think people thought this would be a good show, but to say that this would be a show that started 8 weeks ago and now is something where we're like, this is absolutely prestige television. I don't think people saw that coming. I don't think people saw that coming this way.
I knew that it would be very good because of who was in it, the fact that Neil Druckmann was so heavily involved, the fact that it was HBO. I wouldn't trust this to anyone other than HBO. I wouldn't trust this to Netflix. No. The Flix Funk, no thank you. I wouldn't trust this to Prime. I wouldn't trust this to Hulu. Like, it's in the exact correct hands. Did I think that we would be talking about it joining the pantheon of potentially best seasons of any show ever? No. I think that I would be, at any point, to say that with a first season of anything is foolish. To have those expectations coming in, but it has exceeded all of my wildest expectations, all of them. Yeah. And it's been a ride, and it's been impressive. And it's been for me a joy to share this with people who are not necessarily people who play video games and are able to like open and to experiencing the story, knowing that that's where it comes from, and have these conversations has been, honestly, like I said, it's honestly been like very special for me to be able to do that, because as I've said, your top lists shift and you know what I mean? They shift like moving sands. And I've always said Super Mario World is, in my opinion, the best game ever made. But this is this is to me the best modern game made. I think that once you get into sort of like the PS2 to PS3, the Xbox stuff, you kind of are looking at things through a different lens and a different, this is like modernity for video games, and you have like the retro stuff and everything. But I do believe that the original is the best modern game. And I've said this before, this game came out on PS3
right
in 2013. And it's still better than most of the things that have come since. I'm excited for the possibilities of where we go from here with adapting game stories into television. I think the television works the best. If they tried to do this in a movie, it wouldn't have worked.
No, I agree.
There's too much nuance. But it makes me excited. It makes me excited for Prime's take on God of War, and the fact that Cory Barlog, who kind of not the creator of Kratos and God of War, but the shepherd of the last two of the Norse saga, is going to be heavily involved. And it makes me excited for potentially some Horizon things, because these stories are so goddamn good. And people don't get to experience them because they go, oh, games, Madden,
right,
Call of Duty, Fortnite. You know what I mean? But there's the same way that HBO is prestige television, Sony first party studios are prestige gaming. And they are story driven, narrative driven. You're going to experience stories that will move you the same way that a good TV show or a good movie or a good book will. And so I kind of have had this thought clanging around my head of like, okay, this is The Last of Us, but in many ways it's almost The First of Us, because there's going to be more to come. And if they're all even sniff the quality of this, they're all going to be really good. But with all that being said, next week is the finale. And so Joel's and Ellie's journey, one way or another, is going to conclude. And so what, I know you said I don't have any predictions, but if you really had to dig deep,
yeah,
what do you hypothesize may happen?
I think that we put a spot where Ellie is in peril. And it's an idea of like, she's almost there, whatever there is, and it's that thing where it's like, we don't know what there is anymore.
Salt Lake City.
Everything.
That's
right,
where they were pointed to.
Right. But it's just, that's
an
idea of like, it's the idea of Salt Lake City is an abstract though. Because we don't know that that's actually, because right now, I haven't played it. I don't know if Salt Lake City
you don't know. I know.
Right. So the abstract of wherever there is, and it's Salt Lake City is, I think there's going to be a spot where she's put in a spot of peril and Joel has to make a decision. And that's our cliffhanger. That's what I think is. And I don't think that's, and I'm being very obtuse. I'm a big old triangle here, just saying she's in peril.
Scalene.
Yeah. I'm as obtuse as you can be, and I am just saying she's in peril. Joel has to make a decision, and that's the cliffhanger we're left on. I don't know what gets us there. I don't know anything else that happens, but she's in peril. Joel has to figure stuff out. Joel, do we even really know? I mean, like, he's not 100%. He just got stabbed, man. You got a fucking dart in your neck. So it's that kind of thing where it's, I don't know.
Yeah,
and
that's
I think that's what makes a show good.
There's never been like a definitive answer as far as what the time frames are, because he does seem to be kind of up and at 'em pretty quick.
Yeah.
But there's no idea of like how long, and then they go back and they kind of correct a little bit of that with the Left Behind DLC, where it's like, oh, well, she found some medicine. for him and was, but they cut that out of the show. But I think that the ending will leave you shocked, possibly speechless, or you may just utter a single word. Fuck.
I've never been left speechless in my life.
Well, that's fair. This is you we're talking. Well, this is you we're talking about. That's true.
I
That's
am
true.
one person that I can't be left speechless. If anything, I'm left speechful.
That's what she said.
That's probably.
I don't know if that correlates, but close enough.
Yeah, I would love to be left speechless. I like to see what would happen without speech.
If Gregory T. Filson was left speechless, it would be like, I think the universe would implode upon itself and reality would collapse and we would all enter a stage of perpetual madness.
I feel like Florence Pugh would have to be involved.
She wouldn't.
I'm just saying, for that to happen, for me to be left speechless, Florence Pugh would have to be involved. And so
that seems vaguely inappropriate, Greg.
I'm just saying. Doesn't have to be. I'm just saying she's involved.
Guess we'll find out.
I hope
Guess we'll find out in 6 scant days.
Wait, something? She's going to be here in 6 scant days?
No, you
the
creeper.
Show. I see.
Oh my goodness. Huh?
It's like, if you knew something about her, I mean.
I'm sorry. Let me ask you a question. Do you have to go to the state police barracks with any level of regularity just to let them know about where your whereabouts are?
Florence Pugh's like 26.
I just in general.
No, I don't. I'm very much in the. If anything, I'm scared of everything. So I would not. I would tell them just to be like, "Hey, I'm here because somebody might try to kill me for some reason. I don't know why." And they're like, "Why?" I go, "Because I don't know. Because I'm scared of literally everything." So yeah. I'm the person that gets the registration. Like they send it to you in the mail, and I'm like, I just pay for it. I'm like, give me it now, and then sign me up for everything. Like I don't want to get pulled over for like registration on my license.
Oh,
and that kind of thing.
That registration. Never mind. I thought you were going somewhere else with that. All right.
No.
Let's
like I'm scared of everything.
Let's move on. It's getting weird. Let's just move on.
Car registration.